Hi everyone, it's Nishti here, specialist dietitian for children and parents. And this video, I have really done my research because I want to give you the absolute best of the best. This video is from one of my followers who asked these questions a long time ago, and I must say it's been a bit of a challenge to actually dive deep into this research because I love to really go very deep. Maybe that's the perfectionist in me, who knows. But in this video, you are going to learn how you could possibly, perhaps, because nothing is ever guaranteed 100%, prevent cow's milk protein allergy in your child. How do you prevent it? Especially if you've had one child who's had it and you know how difficult it is and you want to try and do your best to prevent this most common food allergy in the world in your second baby. How do we go about that? So in this video, I'm gonna go through everything from pregnancy to milk feeding and then finally to your child's diet. How important it is to actually pay attention to these three areas. So let's dive into the video and let's start with what you can do as a parent in pregnancy to perhaps, possibly, prevent cow's milk protein allergy in your child. So back in the days, mothers were told that if they want to avoid a food allergy in their child, then they need to avoid eating that specific food. So for example, peanuts or eggs or dairy. But there's absolutely no evidence to support this. So if dairy is part of your diet, then please eat it. In fact, if you're pregnant and you listen to your body will tell you exactly what it wants, and maybe it wants plenty of milk, who knows. So do not be worried about your child too much at that point and what kind of allergy they may develop or not develop. Just focus on your own body, nurturing yourself, and eat the foods that you're already eating or that your body perhaps wants you to eat. So absolutely no reason to avoid any foods that you may think could cause an allergy in your child, because there's no evidence to support this. Now for this next bit, I have got my notes here because I've got some research that I want to mention, and I will link all the papers underneath this video so you can have a look. So as a mom to be, it's very crucial that you ensure your diet is very healthy. And that's because there is actually research to show that a recent study showed that a mother's intake of free sugars or refined sugars like chocolate, sweets, cookies, sugars that we add to foods, intake during pregnancy is associated with an increased risk of offspring developing eczema, wheeze, and food allergies. Now, they don't specify cow's milk protein allergy here. They talk about food allergies in general. And another study showed that a diet high in vegetables and yogurt and low in French fries, this is a very specific study, juice and cereal may reduce the odds of the offspring to develop asthma, atopic dermatitis, wheeze, but not food allergy. But I just thought it was still important to mention, especially for atopic dermatitis, if you're watching this and your child, if you have a history of eczema in your family. A healthy diet in the mom, we cannot deny it. And I'm sure this is probably not a surprise for you. So make sure you eat as little processed food, as little refined foods as possible. If you crave something sweet, why not have fruit? Use fruits to make lovely cakes and biscuits. I have got some great recipes on my Instagram page. For example, recent I made this raspberry almond flour crumble cake, and there's absolutely no refined sugars in it because I myself try not to have any refined sugars. So it is possible. It just means that you have to start maybe baking or cooking, but I'm also sure you can find things in your local supermarket. But fruit, really, I think if you haven't got a sweet tooth, then try and get used to having more fruit. And in fact, our taste buds, if you do a 2-week sugar-free diet, you'll find that after 2 weeks, it will be a lot easier. The first 2 weeks can be really hard because remember, your taste buds are changing and your microbiome or your gut health is like, oh, what's going on here? So it's always difficult the first 2 to 3 weeks max to go from a high refined diet, a diet high in refined sugars, to a diet with minimal amount of refined sugars. Now, this next part is about vitamin D. So there is some research that suggests that vitamin D, that children who are vitamin D deficient are more likely to develop a food allergy. I'm just looking at my notes here. But it's not, the research is quite limited. I couldn't really find excellent research on this topic. But vitamin D is, by the way, we do not get enough vitamin D in our diet. We get about 2 to 3 microgram per day max, and requirements are 10 microgram and up. I take quite a lot because even 25 microgram wasn't enough for me. I was still deficient. So correct your vitamin D. Make sure you're not deficient. How do you know if you're not deficient? Get a test. Most people are vitamin D deficient. I've been vitamin D deficient twice now, and I keep upping my dose. So it's very important to find what works for you. Vitamin D is involved in over 3,000 bodily processes. And it's also an anti-inflammatory vitamin. So we need vitamin in our diet. And although the research isn't great to support that it may reduce the risk of food allergies or even cow milk protein allergy in your offspring or in our offspring, it is still very important. And you know what? If you can tick all these boxes that I'm talking about, then at least you can say you have done everything that you had control over. But what happens in our children when they are born, that we do not really have any control over, do we? But so make sure that your vitamin D is optimal and make sure you are taking a vitamin D supplement. Now, this bit I am extremely passionate about, and I went to a food allergy conference where they talked extensively about it. So let me just make it short and sweet for you. Our world, since the 1960s, it has been introduced to over 220,000 foreign substances. No wonder food allergies have been on a continuous rise since then. Now, for 60 years, we don't really know what goes into our detergents, and even when you think about food, they add food emulsifiers. And you know what? I've done a video in the past where I talked about, I do not believe that additives and gums and emulsifiers and all of these things, I don't know much about it, although I did do food science at university, but I don't remember it. But I do know that it's stuff that's added to our food, and the more that's added to it, the less healthy it can be, really. We need it in its pure form. Now, research suggests that all these detergents and food emulsifiers and all these substances may disrupt the epithelial barrier, causing a leaky gut. A leaky gut allows bacteria and toxins to leak through the intestinal wall. So if you think about the epithelial layer, we have these tight junctions between each cell. But a leaky gut means that you've got gaps in between those cells. And if we have gaps, then stuff we don't really want to will pass through those gaps between the cells. And that's what's known as a leaky gut. This is a big topic. This is extremely important. How can you therefore try and avoid or reduce your risk of a leaky gut? Everything I mentioned previously: healthy diet, correct your vitamin D. But for this bit, making your environment as healthy and toxin-free as possible is key. And I talk a lot about this with my clients. Instead of buying all these chemicals to clean your house with, have you ever tried white vinegar, baking soda? I started this journey in 2020, and it is so easy. There are many recipes online on how to make your own cleaning products. Once in a while, I do have to use bleach, unfortunately, but I use it in the toilet. I don't add it onto any surfaces, and I don't buy all these expensive antibacterial products, because I make my own. And I think it's important, because at least, you know, white vinegar, you know, it will clean your, you know, your surfaces, and it's pure and it's clean, and it doesn't have all these weird substances added to it. Even your cleaning, your washing up liquids, I use the eco-friendly one. It's not 100% toxin free, but it is still as good as it can get, you know. I tried to make my own, but it wasn't really great. So there are so many things. What you wash your hair with, I use Faith in Nature to wash my hair, and Inner Sense to get my curls bouncy. So, and these are all organic products. Make sure what you put on your body, what you put in your home, excuse me, is all healthy and organic and toxin free, because you want to avoid that leaky gut. And by avoiding that, you could potentially also reduce the risk of food allergies or any other allergy. Okay, so let's talk about milk feeding. So your baby is here now. You did everything you could in pregnancy. What can you do now when it comes to feeding? Well, first of all, we cannot deny that breastfeeding is the absolute best nutrition we can give our children. And research is very clear that in children who are breastfed, there is a less likelihood of them developing a food allergy, including cows milk protein allergy. That is not to say it cannot happen, because remember, dairy can pass through breast milk into the baby. And I have done a video where I talk about that. So in some children, although they're breastfed, they can still develop cow's milk protein allergy. But I'm just talking about what the evidence suggests. And breastfeeding is the best nutrition. So what do you do if you cannot breastfeed? Well, again, I'm looking here to look at the evidence that I want to talk to you about. Some evidence, but not very much, and not great quality, but some, suggests that a partially or extensively hydrolyzed formula may reduce the risk of allergy in children who are high risk. For example, proven benefits of preventing allergy, mainly atopic eczema, as seen in children with a genetic risk. So in children with a genetic risk, there is some evidence to prove that a partially or extensively hydrolyzed formula may help. Now, what are these formulas? The partially hydrolyzed formulas are your comfort milks. You know, there are so many brands, but the comfort range. And the reason for that is because they are partially hydrolyzed. That means the protein is slightly, the cow's milk protein has been slightly broken down into smaller bits. Extensively hydrolyzed, you would need to contact your dietitian or your doctor to get that on prescription. That is when the protein has been broken down into even smaller bits than the partially hydrolyzed. Then you also have amino acid formulas. Now, these are completely cow's milk free. Now, these are used in children with suspected cow's milk protein allergy or multiple allergies, really. So it's quite interesting, isn't it? So based on this evidence, although it's not strong enough, and some healthcare professionals may not agree with it, I personally, if a family has a history of a child having an allergy to cow's milk, and if the mom cannot breastfeed, I always advise a partially hydrolyzed formula, because you can't go wrong, really. Partially hydrolyzed formulas are more gentle because they have been slightly broken down. If we start to see eczema very early on, then we will do a 2-week cow's milk trial. So I will say, stop the partially hydrolyzed, go over to a normal formula, and then we'll try even an amino acid formula, which is completely cow's milk free, because I believe that in children with eczema, they actually really benefit from a formula that's completely dairy free. and that usually includes Neocade or alpha amino or pure amino formulas. They are completely dairy-free. So you cannot go wrong. These formulas, although they are prescribed, you can't really go wrong, you know. So although the evidence isn't really strong enough to support what to do if there is a genetic risk in your child to develop a food allergy, including calcium protein allergy, there's absolutely nothing that could go wrong by including one of these products. But always make sure you do talk to your doctor or your dietitian. So if breastfeeding isn't an option, consider a partially hydrolyzed formula. If you suspect your child may already have calcium protein allergy, then you need to speak to your doctor or dietitian and try an extensively hydrolyzed or an amino acid formula. So I hope this was helpful. It's very like a gray area. We're not 100% sure, but there's always a solution, and sometimes it's trying different things to find that solution. So now it's all about the child's diet. What can we do to try and help our children and reduce the risk of food allergies through their diet? Well, I think we all know that a healthy diet has tremendous benefits, but actually there's been a large British study following 1,000 children and assessing their eating, and they found that children who were fed healthy fruit, vegetables, and not much processed foods, but more home-cooked food, were more likely not to have a food allergy later in life. So I think this is a great large study, and I think even without the study, I'm not sure why we need studies to prove that good nutrition is good for us, but anyway, it's still interesting. Make sure that you cook home cooked meals for your child. You know, I speak to a lot of my clients who give their children all these, you know, organic pouches, but I always say that how come it has such a long shelf life? You know, if you give your child an organic banana versus organic banana in a pouch, why does the pouch have a longer shelf life than a real natural banana? Like, I just think we need to be very mindful of how the food industry tries to make things look really healthy and tasty and nutritious, and when actually in the real form, foods in the real form, you cannot really deny that these foods are healthier for us. So rich in fruit and vegetables, and make sure it's home cooked, but also make sure that you think about fiber, especially non-digestible carbohydrates. So prebiotic foods such as asparagus, beans, oats, pulses, underripe bananas. If you look up short chain fatty acids, you'll find that when these prebiotics hit our tummy, the fermentation process will create short chain fatty acids. Now, I have found research that shows that these short chain fatty acids, specifically something called butyrate, which is a short chain fatty acid, it promotes regulatory T cells, now stay with me, in the large bowel, and T cells ensure that our immune system is kept in balance. Basically, they have multiple benefits, our immune system. And the immune system and food allergies go hand in hand. So the more the non-digestible fiber, carbohydrates that you include into your child's diet, and even whilst you're pregnant, you know, think about your own microbiome. That's actually one thing I didn't mention. But your own microbiome and short chain fatty acids and butyrate, the way you spell that is B-U-T-Y-R-A-T-E, if you're interested to look that up. I have linked a great study underneath this video. Butyrate is basically the link between the gut and the immune system. And the healthier and more diverse the gut microbiome, the gut health, the more butyrate we can make, which in turn can help us tolerate more food allergens. Now, this was new to me. So thank you for your questions, because I learned so much as well. And then I found some more research about butyrate. Butyrate, high levels of fecal butyrate, so butyrate found in poo, in early life is linked to act as a protector against the onset of calcium and protein allergy. And children with calcium and protein allergy have lower levels of butyrate in their poo in comparison to children without calcium and protein allergy. And children with higher levels of butyrate outgrow their allergy quicker than those with lower levels. I mean, again, the research is limited, but what I've found, I still think this is relevant and it's important for us to highlight. It just highlights the importance of a healthy diet. So butyrate, make sure your child's diet is rich in short-chain fatty acids, basically these non-digestible fiber, and make sure that you include that in their diet so they can make more butyrate, because the more butyrate they have, the better it is for their immune system. So you're probably thinking, what sort of foods are we talking about? So I've just got a small list here. So asparagus, onion, leek, oats, rolled oats, beans and pulses, and underripe bananas. But you can put down non-digestible carbohydrates or prebiotic fruit and vegetables into Google, or maybe go on to Monash University website. It's a better way to look these things up, and it will give you a list. So for me, this was the most interesting part of doing this research. So butyrate is all about butyrate, and who knows, the more short-chain fatty acids you provide your child, and the more butyrate they are able to make, perhaps the better their immune system, and the lower the risk of food allergies later in life. So I hope this was helpful, everyone. We talked about pregnancy, milk feed, and then finally the child's diet. Let me know which part was the most interesting part to you. For me, it's the short-chain fatty acids, because it got really I had to look up some biochemistry papers, and I love stuff like that. So, but how about you? What did you enjoy? And if you have any questions, please comment below, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Thank you for watching.